of service and bringing together our civilian and military communities. Brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy and work with us. Great day to you. This is a tremendous day. I am so thrilled to be here, and joining me, the guy who helped me get this started and has always been a guiding light, even though he flew a helicopter at night without a light. Hey, this is Chuck Wright standing by. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we were the first stealth helicopter.
Really?
You could hear us, but you couldn't see us.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say good morning and say hi, because one of the things I need to say to keep the attorneys happy is that I work for Fairway and my NMLS number is 311-548. And they sponsor this program, and theirs is MLS is 2289. Chuck, I also want to mention a young person was saying to me the other day, or not young, a young lady who's a realtor, said, my grandfather served in Vietnam. And I started feeling really old because I served in Vietnam. So there is a Vietnam 50th anniversary commemoration going on here in Dallas at the Frontiers of Flight Museum on March the 21st. Starts at 9:15. They're going to start the ceremonies at 10. It's a free event, and it's all about Vietnam. And so if you're a Vietnam veteran, come join us. Almost every military organization in Dallas is going to be a part of it, including your favorite Dunkin' Donuts. They're not military, but boy, they make
we
good
love
coffee.
We love Dunkin' Donuts.
Right. All right.
I got to say something right quick. Since you mentioned Frontiers of Flight, I think I've mentioned this on the show before. The last airplane I ever landed hangs from the ceiling of the Frontiers of Flight Museum. True story.
Yeah.
Jan Colmer's sponsored by FINA Little Pitts stunt plane.
Oh, that's a beautiful plane.
A beautiful little red, white, and blue plane, and it was just a delight to fly, except I'm a helicopter pilot. I don't like doing that upside down stuff. I'll leave that to all of you guys. Hey, we are, and this is a lot of fun for me, particularly because one of my absolute favorite, remember that our show's motto is Charlie Mike. We are dedicated to those who continue the mission, and an organization that absolutely positively has done a great job of continuing the mission, and their incredible CEO, Shelly Kirkland, is on.
Well, introduce Shelly, buddy. Tell us a little bit about her.
This is Shelly Kirkland, and like I said, she's the CEO of the Boot Campaign. And for those that are listening and those that are watching who don't know, Shelly, would you talk a little bit about the mission of the Boot Campaign?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jim and Chuck, for having me. It's an honor to be here today. Boot Campaign, we're a 14-year-old nonprofit. We were started in the great state of Texas by 5 women who wanted to do something to show gratitude and give back to the military community. So 14 years ago, they started what simply was an awareness effort to say thank you to those who served. And they put combat boots, one of the most visible signs of military service, on celebrities and influencers as a way to show that gratitude. And that what began just like that, something very simple, has grown over the last 14 years. And now we have 2 direct service programs that we execute to make sure that all of those who served and their families know that they'll never be forgotten and that they matter to a whole host of grateful Americans. So our mission statement is to unite Americans to honor and restore the lives of veterans and military families through individualized programs.
So let's talk a little bit about those individual programs, because I met several of the founding ladies, a lovely bunch, way back when at an event. You guys would come out to events. You came out to an event in Frisco for us for the we were doing a St. Patty's Day run. So we're coming up on that anniversary. But it was another event that I had, and I bought my first pair of Boot Campaign boots. But talk about these individual programs. And we'll come back to the boots, because you can still buy boots from the Boot Campaign.
Yeah, they're pretty cool too.
Yeah, they're cool looking boots.
Yeah.
So we have 2 main programs, as I mentioned. The first, and where we spend the bulk of our effort, energy, and funding, is providing individualized care for veterans struggling with brain injury, post-traumatic stress, chronic pain, self-medication, and insomnia. What makes Boot Campaign unique is that we are not focused on any era of veteran or any particular branch or any particular MOS, right? So we've served veterans of all eras, Vietnam and up currently most often. And we really want to make sure that they're getting the treatment that they deserve for some of these invisible wounds of war. And so Boot Campaign launched our health and wellness program in the middle of 2016. It was really the brainchild of Navy SEAL veteran Morgan Luttrell. And so
another Texan,
yes, now congressman. Yep.
And so exactly. I was going to throw that in, but yes, his honor, Morgan Luttrell. Yeah. One down in South Texas I think that was his hometown.
District 8. Yes. So he's down there now and doing great things, but he experienced his own traumatic brain injury back in 2009 off the coast of Virginia Beach during a training exercise. And he was thrown from the Black Hawk. The Black Hawk landed on him. Obviously, he had a multitude of different injuries, including a brain injury. And because he was in the special operations community, he was sent all over the country to rehab and get back in fighting shape. And so as part of that, he and my paths crossed actually in Dallas at the University of Texas at Dallas. And he spent time doing one of the research studies that we had there. And he said, when I leave the SEAL teams, I'm going to come back to UT Dallas and get my PhD in cognitive neuroscience. And I
didn't realize he was a doctor.
Yeah. So I he's not a doctor.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. Yeah. I sort of laughed at him because I thought, here you are, you're 6'4", Navy SEAL about to deploy again. And no way is he ever going to follow through on that statement of getting his PhD. But Morgan is a man of his word. And once he puts something in his, thought process, he's going to make it happen. And so 6 months later, he's emailing me from Afghanistan. Here's my application. And will you please look it over? So all that to say is because of his own personal experience, he had a lot of different places where he was going to get the top medical care. And because of that, he had guys and gals, mostly in the special operations community, reaching out to him saying, where did you go for this? Where did you go for that? And so that became so cumbersome because there were so many people in need of this individualized care that Boot Campaign adopted it and created our health and wellness program as it exists today.
That is outstanding. And it was actually at the Boot Campaign event. This has been years now, but I met him for the first time, and I've since seen him a couple of other times. But I met him for the first time, him and his beautiful service dog, his gorgeous German Shepherd at the time.
Oh, German Shepherds are cool.
Yeah, it was absolutely cool. So yeah, if you got a dog, you're totally cool. But two things for our listeners who don't know the name Morgan Luttrell. Morgan Luttrell was played by Mark Wahlberg in the movie Lone Survivor. And Morgan Luttrell.
So there's twins. So there's Marcus Luttrell and Morgan Luttrell.
Oh, excuse me. And I always screw that up.
Marcus is the one who wrote Lone Survivor, and then Morgan is his twin brother. Yep.
Twin brother, who's now in politics and now a congressman. And now I'm not going to be able to keep them straight, but the one that's working with y'all, well, both of them have worked with you or have been connected to your organization. But he's a part of the special operations community himself.
Yes.
So they're both part of the spec op communities. Both great Texans. We're always bragging on our Texans here. So we got to do that because we're from Texas, and we hate the fact that Shelly has abandoned us. She has left Texas for the sunny beaches of Florida.
Just in physical location. I'm a Texan at heart. I was born at Lackland Air Force.
Oh, you're kidding me. Oh my gosh. Well, so I got to throw this in. I didn't know that. I graduated high school from Randolph and then was the first Marine officer commissioned from the University of Texas at San Antonio.
Oh.
So we share some of the same dirt, as they say. Yeah, been over to Lackland a few times.
And
So-
I gotta tell you, Florida's a beautiful place. Love it. A lot of Navy down there, and that's what I come from.
That
He
is
was
true.
feeling left out.
I'm about 7 miles from the Navy SEAL Museum.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool. Now I have an excuse to go. Yeah, I didn't realize that's where it was. I assumed it'd be in North Island, but obviously I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I've been wrong twice this morning already. I'm off to a slow start.
I think it's really cool is I went to your website, and so let's direct everybody to take a look at your website, bootcampaign.org. And if you want to get some great boots, man, they're right there. Boot Campaign. Now, also, let's talk about the Lace Up America program. Tell us a little bit about that and how that works. And then you've got a lot of wonderful celebrities that are involved in that. Please.
Yes. So that's sort of the, excuse me, the genesis of how we began was really encouraging celebrities, but also just American civilians to lace up the most visible sign of military service, the combat boot, to sort of pay homage to that old saying, walk a mile in their shoes, right? And so
I forgot about that. It's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. So we've had over 600 celebrities and influencers, everyone from well-known names like Dolly Parton and The Rock, some Texans, Troy Aikman, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders have been involved over the course of the last 14 years. And then obviously we sell boots on our website at bootcampaign.org so that anybody can grab a pair to show their gratitude to those who serve.
Outstanding. Talk a little bit about a couple of these celebrities. Dolly Parton is top left-hand side of your page. She's kind of obvious. But I know at one point in time, the guys from the Sons of Anarchy were involved, the actors who were part of that.
Yes, they were heavily involved. That was before my time at Boot Campaign, so I didn't get to meet any of them individually, but they were heavily involved. They did a couple public service announcements for us. And really just believe in our mission and what we do. And some of them are still involved to this day.
Oh, that's outstanding. So tell the Shelly Kirkland story. How did you get involved with Boot Campaign? How did you come to this pretty dynamic organization?
Yeah, as I mentioned to y'all earlier, my dad served in the Air Force, my grandfather served in the Army, and my cousin served in the Marine Corps. And so though I had various military service in my family, it didn't really impact me until I could understand what that sacrifice meant, right? In a meaningful way. And so back when I was working at the University of Texas at Dallas, we had 2 Department of Defense funded studies, one for brain injury and one for post-traumatic stress. And I met a bunch of guys and gals who, while I was living my best life in college, in Nashville, Tennessee, and post-college in Washington, D.C., they were willing to lay their life on the line for me. And so I just became very moved by them and passionate about the struggles that they're facing following their service. And one of them happened to be Morgan Luttrell. And so he, again, had his own experience with brain injury, and we just kept in touch after he left that research study. And he came to me one day and said, I need you to come and lead this organization. They're doing health and wellness, and we want you to spearhead the effort.
Oh, how very cool.
I got to tell you, this is so important. We're going to come back after this break, but I want to talk more about the programs in health and wellness that they're promoting and that they're doing, because this is tremendously important for not only our military community, because the military leads the way, but civilian community. Just because, like you were talking about, Morgan's brain injury did not come in combat. It came in an exercise. So much of the brain injury, automobile accidents, all kinds of things. So let's talk about that a little bit when we come back. This is the Veterans Impact Show. Please join us on Facebook, subscribe, be a part of our program, join the team, and continue the mission. This is Chuck and Jim on the Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Well, we're talking with Shelly Kirkland, the CEO of the Boot Campaign. You need to go to bootcampaign.org. You want to get a great pair of boots, but you want to support a great veterans organization who does tremendously needed work within the veteran community. Join them. Also, you could be a celebrity wearing boots, just like a lot of other celebrities who are part of Lace Up America. So with the Boot Campaign, their primary mission is health and wellness. Shelly, tell us a little bit more about that. Can you, because you obviously have worked at UTD, you have more knowledge about brain science and that than most of us average guys. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And you can tell that Jim may be in need of a little mental health. I make fun of him all the time.
We all are. That's the thing. We all are in need of it, right? We all need to be taking control of what's going on between our ears. And so I think that's part of what we're trying to do, especially clearly through what we do at Boot Campaign and our target, the veteran population. So we want to make sure that guys and gals are getting the most individualized and personalized care. So as I mentioned, the 5 issues that we address in our health and wellness program are brain injury, post-traumatic stress, chronic pain, self-medication, and insomnia. So someone that comes to our program, they fill out what we refer to as an application because we start with those 5 issues, right? You have to have at least one of those 5 to be part of our program. And then we have an intake with a clinical psychologist who determines sort of what the most pressing need is for that particular veteran. So they may be struggling with brain injury and, they're having a hard time with memory. They may be having some mood issues. And so we really take a deep dive into what their brain and their body is telling our medical team. And then we tailor a treatment plan based on them and what they most need. And so we deliver some treatment ourselves, and then we work with partners if there's more sophisticated treatment that needs to be done to make sure that, they have the appropriate physician.
Shelly, I let me back up just a second and tell you, you don't know me, but I'm a certified senior advisor that works with seniors. And one of the most interesting things I found out was you can rebuild pathways to the brain. You can rebuild your brain. Just because you have a critical injury doesn't mean it's turn out the lights, the party's over. And I started studying a little bit about that as I dealt more and more with dementia and Alzheimer's and things of that within my certified senior advisor role. So there's a whole lot more that people don't understand about brain science and how the brain can be regenerated and how pathways can be rebuilt that we didn't know 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Is that, that's correct?
That's exactly right, Jim. And thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think it's an important point. We want people to see that the hope that exists if you have the right intervention and the right care, right? So many times people leave either appointment or leave the service, and they're just, it is what it is, right? This is sort of the hand I've been dealt, and I just have to figure out how to cope with it. And that's not the truth, right? There's a whole group of us at Boot Campaign and beyond who really want to make sure that these people know that they can get better and they can heal and go back to their families, go back to their communities, and do what it is they want to do, right? Fulfill their own individual purpose.
Well, we see a lot. Sorry, because this is an area that I'm real passionate about, because I've seen so many people self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. And when you talk about insomniac, that's one of the biggest problems is they can't sleep, and it just becomes a crazy, crazy cycle. And I think in the past, doctors were prescribing sleep, things to make them sleep, and then turn around and mood elevators to wake them up and put people in a tremendous cycle. That's not what you guys are doing, and that's not what's available right now that wasn't available 10 or 15 years ago.
Right. We're trying to make sure that we're taking a holistic approach, right? We want to make sure that we're looking at the whole individual. And quite often, right, because so many veterans may have started at the VA, they are overprescribed medication. And so when they go through our program, they actually get off a bunch of the prescriptions.
That's really important. Shelly, one point, I want to come back to something that you said earlier, because one of the things that I have found is we have a lot of, and we still have World War II and Korean era veterans that are still alive, but your program is for all of them. So many of our veterans, especially our Vietnam era veterans, think the programs are only for those post 9/11. And we have a lot of organizations that say, hey, we're just for post 9/11.
Well, when we come back, let's talk about that, especially Vietnam, my group, because there's a lot of people need help.
Yep.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, Chuck, this is a great conversation about mental health and wellness. And we've got Shelly Kirkland on to talk about that. So I'm telling people, go to bootcampaign.org. Take a look also at Lace Up America. Join the celebrities, buy a pair of boots, be a part of this. But what they're talking about is health and wellness, which is something we all need, especially you Marines.
Now, we got crayons to deal with that.
Oh, okay.
We love being a little bit silly, and I joke about that, but it's not really a joking matter. And quite frankly, I'm glad that my macho credentials are intact, because I have no problem saying, if you need help, get help, and don't go it alone. Too many people, we have this warrior ethos culture, a lot of machoism. And let me say this, macho is not a male thing. I have met plenty of female veterans who embrace that macho-ness, but you know what? There's an issue there. And you know what? You're absolutely right. A lot of you'll probably agree with this, Shelly. You're going to hear a lot of people going, oh, but they've got it so much worse than I do. You're absolutely right. There's always going to be somebody with a bigger problem. There's always going to be somebody with a smaller problem. You can deal with your problem. And let's continue this conversation on how to get help. So how would somebody, let's talk about the mechanics when we go to Boot Campaign with no S. And if I put the S in, my apologies. I know better than that. And if I didn't, then the heck with you guys for screwing it up.
Okay.
But let's go to bootcampaign.org. How will somebody from there plug in to your organization?
Yeah, so if you go to our website at bootcampaign.org, you'll see at the top, there's a banner that says what we do. And then there is health and wellness underneath that. And folks can read about the program. And at the bottom of that page, there is a link to apply. And so then once you fill out that very basic information, someone from our team will be in touch to schedule a call with our clinical psychologist on staff, and then everything kind of rolls from there.
Okay, so let's talk a little logistics. Mm-hmm. You can do, I'm making a little bit of an assumption here, so correct me if I'm wrong, which you've done already today. Thank you very much for that. That's a good thing. I'm wrong all the time. But your program is national, correct?
Correct. Yes. We serve veterans from any era, any state. Last year, we worked with veterans in 46 states.
Wow. So what 4 states do we need to go get so you've got the trifecta?
I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I can circle back with you and provide it for sure.
As you can tell, I do my mental illness as with comedy.
Can I ask one question though? You talk about veterans. Do you guys also reach out to first responders? Because I know there's a lot of trauma that goes on. I've recently been talking to some about that. Do you work with first responders who are maybe not veterans?
We do not. We work with plenty of first responders who are also veterans. That is actually a significant portion of a population that we work with, but you have to have served in the military to receive help from Boot Campaign.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
So talk a little bit, and obviously you're doing a lot of telehealth, which is, I think, has the potential to be game changing, especially in the mental health field, because a lot of it is so much based on conversation. But who are some of your, or if you can talk about this, who are some of your partners when somebody needs to take that next step? The most obvious one is you've got somebody with a drinking problem who's got to spend 30 or 60 days in a facility.
Right, exactly. Boot Campaign as a whole, as an organization, does not provide that care directly if there is a substance abuse problem. We work often with Warriors Heart down in Bandera, Texas. They are a substance abuse facility specifically for veterans and first responders. So we work with them quite often. There's also other veterans, quite frankly, who don't want to be around other veterans when they're going through treatment for substance abuse. And so in that case, there's various other entities that we work with if they sort of want to be removed from that veteran population.
And how appropriate?
Again, I think the most important thing is that everything that we do is individualized to the specific veteran. We're not just going to send you here because we work with them most.
Right.
We want to take into consideration what's going to make you most comfortable so that you have the best chance of success so you can get back to what it is you want to do with your life.
Shelly, do you guys work with the veterans courts around the United States who work with veterans who have fallen off the wagon, gotten busted for alcohol or physical abuse or drugs? Do you work with those?
We have worked with them in a few instances, but not, in some programmatic official way. But I think it's great what they do for sure to make sure that guys and gals are getting the legal advice that they need and the care that they need, frankly, when they have trouble with the law. But there may be some underlying issues as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that they see. The veteran treatment courts are a huge passion of the Veteran Impact Show. Talk about Charlie, Mike, talk about continuing the mission. And they are actually transforming lives, which, quite frankly, a big part of what they do is mental health counseling. This is going to sound so trite, but it's getting people's heads straight. And a lot of it is getting people to believe in themselves and respect themselves. And sorry, I don't want to talk about what you guys do, but that's so important, is redefining that sense of purpose that some of these guys and girls, ladies have lost. Guys and gals, I don't know how to say that in a politically correct age, but I'm old enough that I don't care about being politically correct. But it's making, and this is what's so impressive about how the Boot Campaign has evolved, at least to me, from an organization that's about awareness. And my new, I've got a new vision, because we talk about wearing red on Fridays, and red stands for Remember Everyone Deployed. I don't want everybody just to wear red. I want everybody to wear red, wearing their Boot Campaign combat boots.
Absolutely.
That's what we like.
We're going to start a new national campaign.
Well, my company Fairway has a huge on our Friday calls. Everybody wears red and a red t-shirt. Yeah. And Fairway is very involved with the Warrior Alliance that they do. But this is so important because, Chuck, you're talking about, it's easy to go to a bar and get a drink.
Yep.
It's easy to go get a this, or easy to go get a that. And when we were in the military as young men and women, golly, that was a long time ago.
Well, for you,
going to
speak for yourself.
The enlisted men club, going to the O Club, and the stories I heard and what we saw, everybody was encouraged to drink.
Yep.
That was a big thing. We were encouraging alcoholism in the military way back when, and I think that that's carried over. It's the easy thing to do, and the hard thing to do is wake up to the fact that you got a problem. and that problem is killing you. But it's not just you, it's killing your family, it's killing your friends, it's killing the people around you. And I think this is an important thing, to get involved. That's what we're saying. Don't isolate, get involved.
And interesting that you say that, because as I was in the military, they were just starting to wake up. And I talked about the gentleman. He was a Navy commander. I can't remember his last name, but who introduced himself as, "Hi, I'm Ted. I'm an alcoholic," had become an alcoholic. And in the flight we were talking about off the air, I took in flight school to go down and meet his grandparents. I remember the power of sitting with his grandmother and listening to her share his trials and his tribulations. And at the time, there wasn't a boot campaign. But at least then the military started to recognize, hey, wait a minute, maybe we're helping, enabling, however you want to say that, the problem. So, Shelly, talk a little bit, if you would, about, I'm sure you've got success stories. Talk a little bit about how you see the difference that you make, and then very much, what is the future of the boot campaign?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share them. I think that's one of the best part of my job, right? Which is seeing people succeed and grow into who they want to become. I think it's important to point out, obviously, there's a suicide crisis in the veteran and military community, and we continue to see numbers growing across, many of the different demographics. Research has actually shown that the time that it takes from experiencing a trauma to reaching out for help is often 11 years.
Wow.
That's a long
Good
time.
heavens.
And in those 11 years, the trauma continues to be compounded by various other things that may have nothing to do with military service or anything else, right? It's just life. Life happens. And so we actually found that last year, of the 222 veterans who went through our health and wellness program, on average, the time from when they separated or retired from military service to when they reached out for boot campaign was 11.29 years.
Wow.
So we're following that trajectory, right, of that previous research showing that it's 11 years before you reach out for help. And so there's no shame in reaching out for help, right? The most courageous thing someone can do is raise their hand and say, I need you to help me with this. I don't have the capability to do it on my own. So can you please come alongside me and make a difference in my life?
You said that so incredibly well. Having the courage to raise your hand, and that was, again, in my own attempt to downplay with humor, and talking about my macho credentials being intact, was really driving at that very powerful line. It takes more courage to ask for help than to self-medicate, to ignore, to try to cope, whatever else you've been doing. And it's just so easy to reach out. And I wanted to segue this because one of the things you talked about, we've been talking a lot about our veterans, but you mentioned at the very beginning, you work with families as well. And this is the part, Jim mentioned it before, it doesn't just affect the individual veteran. Talk a little bit about what you do with families.
Yeah. So from our health and wellness program, obviously we take the family unit into consideration. Oftentimes there may be couples counseling or family counseling that needs to happen. And we will help, make that happen for that family. Directly, most often how we serve military families is through our second program, which we affectionately call Santa Boots. And that happens during the December time period. And we work with families who are wounded, ill, and injured, or facing financial hardship, or just have experienced, honestly, this last year we worked with a lot of folks who were impacted by the hurricanes. And so we provide specially curated gift boxes for them, and they're all across the country. And so, again, the main thing at Boot Campaign is that everything that we do is individualized. So this is not just an average, everybody's going to get the same gifts. for Santa boots, we really look at the individuals. We get their wants, wishes, desires, their sizes, and we shop for them. We have volunteers that shop for them based on what they need or want. For example, we had a family a couple years ago who the dad was getting ready to deploy. Right before he was deploying, they lost their house in a house fire. And so their was, sheets and kitchenware, and obviously some fun things for the kids. And so it's just a really unique way that we can support those who need it most during the holiday season.
So we have thrown up the Santa Boots campaign. We've got the website up for everybody to see. But it was really interesting because one of your programs is December 4th through the 8th in Grapevine, Texas, and the programs are all over the country.
That's right.
But Grapevine is close here to us, so I'll be down there in my boot campaign boots, volunteering with my family. We absolutely, having worked with programs like this, let me just say, it's great what we're doing for everybody else. You want to talk about fulfilling your own soul and filling yourself up. There's a lady, a picture in the top right hand corner, sorry, who's in absolute tears because on the worst day of their lives, you guys are stepping up and making a difference. And I just think that's so cool.
Wow. I want to say thank you. Now, we're going to come back after this final set of messages and wrap this up because we're going to bring it back into the dock. But I got to tell you, Shelly, thank you for bringing so much to us. This is the Veterans Impact Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. We have had a tremendous conversation today with Shelly Kirkland, the CEO of the Boot Campaign. Guys and gals, it's a pretty amazing, the conversation we have. I'm going to tell you, go to bootcampaign.org. You're going to learn a whole lot, which I have learned a whole lot today and in doing research for the show yesterday. I was amazed at what all they do to help veterans. And the thing that you're talking about, Shelly, the things that, Chuck, we're helping people with brain injury. We're helping people with all types of injuries. This is not just veterans, though. This is permeating our entire nation. Suicide rates are not just up for veterans. They're up across the board, especially for teenagers. And one of the things that I have personally observed is when people get into the cycles of mental illness, using drugs and alcohol and various things, they get so angry over their circumstances. It's not just the courage to say, I got a problem. It's getting out of that anger, getting out of that mental cycle of abuse that is self-abuse. And we've got to help people. We've got to be there for them. And I love that the mission continues with the boot campaign. So, Shelly, thank you. And again, we want people to donate. You can donate to the Santa Boots. You can donate to their other programs. And you can buy your own set of boots, which I'm going to do. I need some because we're involved with Sea Cadets. And you need some.
You know, and I just thought about this. I completely forgot last year that one of my son's Christmas presents was a pair of boots. He stole my boots, but then realized they didn't fit just right. And we frankly wore them out. So I got him a new pair of Boot Campaign boots last year for Christmas.
Love it.
I guess it was 2 years ago because we got caught up in the supply chain. He didn't get them till March, but that's okay. They came and he loved it and had a great Christmas. Shelly, as we get ready to turn this over to Jim to take us into the dock, talk about next week's show, give us a final thought to wrap up with, a final thought you'd like to share, something that's kind of floating with all of these crazy questions. And yes, this goes by way too fast.
Yeah. Well, I think, what we want people to know about Boot Campaign, and especially what we want the veteran and military community to know, is that they matter to us. And so we launched our You Matter effort, 3 years ago now. And really, it was meant to help address that suicide problem that Jim mentioned when we came back from the break. And that message, honestly, was initially targeted to solely the veteran and military population. And it was just a simple t-shirt where 100% of the proceeds go straight back to veterans seeking care through our health and wellness program. But that message has sort of taken on a life of its own and really means so much to different people. And so we'll have, moms of Marines writing in, and they'll say, I needed to know that I mattered while my son was deployed. Or, the spouse write in and say, I needed to know that I mattered too. And so folks can go on our website at bootcampaign.org. You can click on the shop button and you can buy a You Matter shirt. We have a whole host of other You Matter gear. And again, 100% of the proceeds from that help the veterans who are seeking care through our health and wellness program.
Oh, man, thank you for all you do. Thank you for continuing the mission. I'd like to stop right now and say a quick prayer, because this is so important. What all they do is helping people. So, dear God, we say thank you for protecting our active duty military, our brothers and sisters overseas, and our brothers and sisters right here in the first responders that are taking care of us, that are watching over us. Thank you, dear God, for all you do to protect them. And thank you, dear God, for the veterans who continue the mission, and for the people like Shelly Kirkland and Boot Campaign who reach out and help people all across the nation. So thank you, God. We appreciate all you do. We thank you and we praise your holy name. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
I got to tell you, this has been one of our best programs, and
Absolutely.
I have enjoyed it so much, and I learned so much. Shelly, I'd like to connect with you, so stay on for just a second after we finish up with Facebook. Facebook, thank you for being part of this. Share.
Cue up next week's guest.
Yes. Okay. Well, you tell them.
Oh, okay. That's why I wrote it down for you, but that's okay. Hey, and turn another great show next week. We're going to talk to Megan Heil and Gus Karbakis with the Texas Veterans Network, which is part of Combined Arms, as we continue to interview those that continue the mission. Shelly, thank you so much for the time this morning. This has been an absolutely great show.
Thanks.
Although I'm mad at you, you made me cry. So there we go.
Hey, thank you. And this is the Veterans Impact Show. We're going to be right back next week to help you and to learn more about Continue the Mission.